Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. A little bit earlier this week than I normally do these videos, but nothing special about it, just the fact that simply it's a day off today. Prefer to do these on a day off so I get a bit more time to kind of put some thought into them, which hopefully comes across. I don't know if it does or not. But yeah, busy week obviously ahead with press conferences, matches, another press conference, another match, all kinds to squeeze in. So this was really my one chance to speak to everyone. So I thought, why not? Let's have a Monday video for a change. And there's a lot to talk about. Just pretty much from a weekend. We've got a win to talk about. Hurrah! Oh my goodness. And I want to talk a little bit about the protests at the weekend and also some little bits and pieces on the manager hunt, which is... It's getting there, but there's little bits and pieces, and I know there's certain questions that people have been asking me, which I'll try and answer at the end of this as well. So, usual format, game first. We'll have a little chat about the protests in the middle, and then the manager stuff at the end. I know people are always asking me for timestamps, things like that, or some people are. But as I always said with these things, guys, it's very much just my raw stream of consciousness, me chatting away to you non-stop. Unfortunately, you guys have got to pick it out of there. It was never going to be the most professional thing. I was never going to have, incredible graphics like things flying around my face. Or not that anyone, I don't think, ever actually has that in a video. No little sunlight, little words flashing up around me or anything. All bad words. But yeah, it's just me. It's just me chatting to you, so I'm sorry. That's it. But anyway, let's get cracking. Let's talk about Tottenham Hotspur rather than me and what I'm going to talk about. It was a decent match yesterday. I thought Spurs got better and better as the game wore on. They very much started it a little bit pedestrian. I thought, other than Harry Kane's early shot that hit the post, it was a little bit pedestrian. What I would say, Wolves were very poor. Very, very poor. I can see why they've struggled this season. I think a lot of it obviously has to do with poor old Raul Jimenez being out. Hopefully, I think he's got a specialist meeting maybe tomorrow, certainly this week, where he's going to find out whether he can come back and play football now or not. So, fingers crossed for him, because a horrific thing to have to happen in your career, as Ryan Mason knows well. But I do think Wolves have massively missed that kind of focal point that they had in the Mexican, and they just don't look the same team as they were that season when he was kind of flying. Saying that, Tottenham, it's worth pointing out that Tottenham have not beaten Wolves at home since 2010, so almost 11 years ago. I think it was September 2010. What I would add the caveat of that is I think that's only like 3 or 4 games. I think Spurs had lost their last 2 in the Premier League at home against Wolves and drawn 1. And then they won that one back in 2010. This is Premier League, by the way, no other competitions. But what it shows is that Wolves have been a tough opponent for Spurs to beat at home. We know Matt Doherty scored, didn't he, a couple of seasons back? I remember that one. So they use the ball well. They obviously have the threat of Adama Traore, who... I don't want to be too harsh to the guy, but having seen, I used to kind of see him at Middlesbrough a fair bit when before he came to Wolves, and other than that one season where he had a little purple patch at one point during it, I don't really see huge amounts of progression in the guy. I think he's incredibly fast, can be quite skillful on the ball, but end product, he's a bit like, I know this is a ridiculous comparison because one is huge and one is small, but he's a little bit like a poor man's version of Aaron Lennon for me. Aaron Lennon, I think earlier in his career, got accused of maybe not having that end product. But I actually felt that as he wore on, he got better and better and did have an end product. I remember Martin Jol deliberately playing him on the left-hand side to just kind of give him a little bit more balance to his game, a little bit more of make him more of a threat rather than always going onto the right-hand side and stuff like that. And I felt that probably benefited him. Always remember that goal against Chelsea, the first time Spurs had beaten Chelsea in a long time in the Premier League. God, we went for Adama. Who thought at the start of this video we were going to go from Adama Traore to Aaron Lennon? You couldn't probably find 2 different looking people in terms of stature. But yeah, I felt that Traore was essentially Wolves' biggest threat, and he wasn't really a threat. He had a couple of those runs where you just were screaming out, hack the man down. Other teams, and I remember Spurs, I think it was at Molineux, was it last season? I can't remember if it was under Mourinho or whether it was Poch's last full season, where they were just hacking the Wolves players, especially Traoré, a lot. It didn't look nice. It wasn't good, but it's kind of what winning teams do. And I just felt there were a few moments where Traoré got through yesterday. It was a bit like, come on, lads, stick a leg out. If he goes down, take the yellow card for the team. And they didn't. And it could have resulted in worse scenarios. But like I say, because of the lack of quality up front for Wolves, it didn't happen. They've got the young lad who's completely gone out of my head, who's up front, the young striker, who I think will be a very good striker. Just, he's got to adapt. It's gone out of my head. Doesn't matter. It's not about Spurs, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But yeah, on the day, Spurs had to beat the team in front of them, and they did that. They hit the woodwork 3 times. They had 2 efforts cleared off the line. I think they had 24 efforts on goal in total. Can't really ask much more than that. They did the job. And bearing in mind, obviously West Ham drawing at Brighton the night before pretty much put things into Spurs' hands in terms of the top 6. They can control their own destiny again because if they win all their matches and West Ham win all their remaining 2, Spurs finish above them on goal difference unless West Ham win by the most ridiculous scorelines. So, we've seen scenarios like this where Tottenham, and we've seen them this season, where Tottenham have taken someone's gift and essentially hurled it into a ditch. But they didn't do that. They played well. It wasn't the most incredible performance. Of course it wasn't, because I think the opposition weren't as good as Leeds were a week before. But they did what they had to, and that's the most important thing. And I think, I know he's getting a bit of flack, but when you look at it on paper, it's another feather in the cap for Ryan Mason, who he's only 29. He's won 3 out of his 4 Premier League matches in his first month as a manager. He's going to get flack because of some of the decisions, and there's this perception of him picking his mates, I think is the expression I've seen on social media and stuff. And yes, he is making some safe choices in terms of the team, in terms of sticking with players like, Eric Dyer was a very, very, very lucky boy to start again this weekend after having a horror show against Leeds, responsible for 3 of the goals, or at least involved in 3 of the Leeds goals, 3 Leeds goals. So yeah, I did think he was very, very lucky to get in there, and obviously Joe Rodon is probably just desperate for this season to get done, not playing a part at all in a squad, having been, probably the brightest defender before Mason came in. So I understand decisions like that, and obviously Tongion Dembele barely getting any minutes. I can understand people getting frustrated at him, but I do think if you look at it on paper, he's come in, he's 29 years old, and yeah, he's won 3 out of 4 in the Premier League, and I don't think he's done a bad job. Like I've said before, the training sessions apparently are superb, very technical, very high technical level, and the players are really being challenged. And yeah, I don't think we could really have been asked to. Of course, we would have loved him to win the final. It was going to always be incredibly tough, but he's doing what his job brief is, and I think that's probably why he doesn't really care what people say, because he has a very set job. That's to get to the end of the season, hopefully steer the team to a European spot, which at the moment they're on progress to do. And yeah, he knows he's not going to get the job full time. It's not going to happen. He's too inexperienced. But yeah, he's doing what's asked of him. And I must admit, I like the guy. I do. I like Jose Mourinho as well, although his supporters will tell you I wanted to see him burned at a stake, which is far, far, far from the truth. But I like Ryan Mason as well, and I think he conducts himself very well. He can be very difficult to get things out of. We had a bit of a joke on Friday. I asked him about his future and whether he would be happy to be in the new manager's first team staff rather than in his previous head of development position in the academy. And I made the mistake, and I knew as soon as I made it, what us journalists do, because doesn't that sound poncy? What we do when we ask a question, there's a very set ways of asking questions in terms of certain ways of asking them will not get an answer. There's certain ways of asking a question that will get straight batted away, and there's certain ways of asking it that get you the answer you want in an indirect way, which is why sometimes on social media I'll see people telling us, like the local Spurs journos, the regular ones, you need to ask this. Why don't you ask this? It's because, without sounding too, again, poncy, we've been doing this quite a while now, and we know especially you get to learn the people that you're dealing with, and you know that asking things in a certain way gets you nothing. There's certain kind of almost a way around it to get the answer you want. And I was trying to do that with Ryan Mason and asked this question, and I added in the absolute one of the worst words you can shove in a question. That's hypothetically. As soon as it came out, as soon as I came out of my mouth, I don't think you get to see me in the press conference things they release. I don't think you see the person asking a question. But yeah, I started to smile as soon as I said it, and Ryan Mason started to smile because he knew he had me. And he came out with it and he said, look, sorry, Ali, as you've said, you've used the word hypothetical, and I can't talk about hypothetical situations. I was like, oh, no, you get, as in me. It was completely my fault. And the only reason I say that is because he conducts himself very well. He knows exactly what he can and cannot say. He's very well briefed, I think, by the press guys, but also, as a 29-year-old, God, I know what I was like in my 20s, and I know some of the daft things that I would have come out with without thinking about it, and he doesn't do that. He speaks his mind. I saw him yesterday saying that how in the world is Connor Cody named man of the match when you've lost and you're a defender and you've had 2 goals conceded and you lose 2-0. And I like the fact that he says that, and he will come out against decisions he doesn't like, and he'll do that. But yeah, he's very controlled and he's very kind of good at his answer. And what I think I like about him as well is he doesn't hide his passion for Tottenham Hotspur. He is, Ryan Mason joined Spurs as an 8-year-old. He's absolutely Tottenham Hotspur through and through. You cut open his veins and little cockerels probably start flying out of it. He is totally Spurs, and I love that. I counted it up because I'd mentioned it to someone in the club before his press conference on Friday. I said, look, he does have this habit of using the term "this football club," and he uses it a lot. He either uses "this football club" or "the football club." It's like a real "this is my club" kind of man. And in his press conference on Friday, he did 2. There was one for the broadcast media and one for just purely for the written media. And I counted it up after. I counted up. I'm not some dweeb. 1, 2, 3. As I'm looking, it's a word counter. I can type in the term. Across those 2 press conferences, so across about 25 minutes, he used the term "this football club" or "the football club" 27 times. And I like that about him. I like the fact that he doesn't hide the fact that he is Spurs through and through. And it's quite fun. And that's, I think, why I think a lot of people just wishing him well and hoping he does what he does. I know he's getting flack because we want to see Roden and we want to see Dembele and we want to see players getting their chance. But what I would say is he's letting people see the Bale, Ali, Kane and Son quartet that we've all been calling for and we've all wanted to see. And I think I saw a stat earlier that I think it's Kane, Bale and Son are a couple of goals away or something from being the most or the highest scoring attacking trident in English football or Premier League history or something. Obviously, a lot of that credit has to go to Mourinho, clearly, because, Kane and Son's goals, the bulk of them, and Bale's as well, came during his tenure. But Mason is letting us see the 4 of them. And Dele Alli, he's brought Dele Alli back in from the cold, and Dele Alli, for me, is getting better and better and better. Who would have thought that a player needs to have matches and fitness and rhythm and sharpness and confidence? I know, it's crazy, isn't it? This is why I don't like to jump on the bandwagon with saying this player's rubbish, this player's crap, all of this sort of stuff. Because I do think sometimes when you're coming in and out of a team, it takes a while. It's no coincidence. It really isn't. And I thought Dele was very good yesterday. I still saw him getting some flack after the game, but I think that's just kind of modern football now. I think we get it in our head that a player is not doing what we want them to do, but actually we don't really look at the full analysis of what he did and everything off the ball. And yeah, I asked Ryan Mason about Dele Alli yesterday because I said, Gareth Southgate was up in the stands, he was watching on, and he was everywhere, Dele Alli. Every little connecting bit of play, it was Dele Alli coming to get that ball and moving it quickly and moving it on. And, Mason said, I can't obviously speak for Gareth Southgate, but for me, and he admitted, I'm not someone that likes to single out players for individual performances, but I have to with Dele. I think we all felt it. I think we could see how important he was. And I think you can see, I think he's getting more and more confident. He was involved in the second goal, albeit with a little bit of an overhit pass to Reguilon. He had that moment, didn't he, where he just waited the perfect moment to play Kane in, who hit the post. And then, to be fair, Dele should have done better. He should have buried the rebound, but he hit it against the other post. But, I think it came off, was it maybe with 10 minutes to go, roughly that, maybe later. And he put in a shift. He was off the ball, pressing, harassing. He looks like, if he can keep a run going, have a really good, strong pre-season under whoever is the new man, I think he could have a good season next year. I think he really could. And I think this was really a big indicator of why Spurs weren't looking or didn't want to lose him permanently in the January window, because they kind of feel it's just been a blip for him. Not a blimp, it's not a huge balloon. Just a blip for him, and it just... So many players have gone through this. So many players, young players, have come out of the blocks absolutely flying. And then they've just stumbled and they've stuttered and it hasn't quite gone right. And sometimes they just have to find their way again. And I think that's what's happening with Dele. And it's great to see. It's lovely to see him with a smile on his face. He was saying some stuff after the game about, I think he tweeted it as well as saying it in an interview. He just loves to, it's great to have the ball at his feet, and he's loving playing with the likes of Bale, Kane and Son. And, I think... If you wanted to read maybe too much into it, you could say the whole thing about having the ball at his feet suits him better. It's quite infamously in the Amazon documentary. I went back and watched it last night, funnily enough, just to see what he actually said. And he had spoken. Do you remember he came in? It was half-time in the RB Leipzig home game in the Champions League last season. And he came in and he was just having a real go about the fact that, we're not going to win playing like this. We're not going to win just defending and hoofing it long. And then Mourinho, obviously, literally moments later, did a team talk that pretty much went the opposite direction and said, look, we have to not concede goals. The best way to win a match is not conceding goals. And it was very much, I think the key thing clearly to take away from it is that what Jose Mourinho wanted just didn't mesh with what Dele Alli, to kind of get the best out of Dele Alli. Whether that's right or wrong, whether that's Dele's fault, whether that's Jose's fault, who knows? But ultimately, he looks like a man reborn now. And I think mostly that's just because if he's playing football. It's as clear as that. Is if you don't come in and out of matches and expect them to shine, it doesn't work like that. But no, Dele was very good. He was really good. And Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, got to give him big praise as well. I thought he was superb. I think I may have said this before, but for me, when Hojbjerg is on form, I think Tottenham Hotspur are. I think he's kind of like the heartbeat in the centre of the side. And I think if he is not looking knackered, which, I can't remember the exact figure now, but he's got the joint amount of minutes played this season for Tottenham alongside Hugo Lloris. The next outfield player is Son, who I think Hojbjerg has played the equivalent of more than 3 matches worth more than Son. He's had to play so much because just the guy he is, and he just brings this leadership in the centre of the park and this attitude, this not giving up. Yes, at times he kind of seems to have some limits to the way he plays, but then he'll have a game like yesterday where he does a lot of the things that you think he's limited at. It's really weird, like the pass to Kane for the first goal. Lovely weighted ball, absolutely fantastic, and you wonder, why don't you do that more often? And then the second, the goal he scored himself, again, another question I asked Ryan Mason was about him, and he was like, I don't know what he was doing in the 6-yard box. But clearly, I think he started off as an attacking midfielder, so there must be that sense in him to get up there and join in with play, and he was in the right place at the right time and slammed it home. He's a fascinating guy when you hear him talk. He kind of treads this fine line between almost sounding like he leads a cult and also is probably the most impressive, kind of inspirational person you'll talk to. He's got this funny way of talking that it's very, he almost sounds like he lives his life like this kind of monk, almost like just sitting there, you can just imagine with legs crossed just thinking, football, I must destroy the opposition. I must destroy the opposition. And he wakes up the next morning, goes in like, just roars in people's faces. I know that couldn't be any less like a monk. But you know what I'm saying? It's almost like he's dedicated his life to the sole purpose of destroying the opposition in football and winning football games. And he was asked, as an interview afterwards, he was asked about the next manager at Tottenham, and he wouldn't give too much away. All he would say is, look, this is an ambitious club and the next manager has to be ambitious. And he was saying about the attitude of the team. He said the new manager will find a team with lots of quality, but also a really good attitude. But he did add the caveat that, look, it's no secret that attitude hasn't been there at times this season. And whether that points to certain players that need to move on, or whether that points to just the new manager having to unite everyone and making sure that there is no attitude lapses like that. But yeah, it's a fascinating one. Have a look out there. It's out there. I wrote it as well and I put it out there. And I find him a really interesting character. He's had, as first season go, I think he's one of the players that will definitely come out this season with a lot of credit. I think for the whatever it was, roughly 11 million, something like that. He's been an absolute bargain for Tottenham. Whatever it was, it was 3 million more than what Cole Walker-Peters went to Southampton for. So, yeah, I think he's had a terrific season. He's got knackered towards the end of it. Of course he has, and that's through overwork. And you'd hope that Oliver Skipp will come back if the new manager wants him to stick around next season, and he will either play alongside Hojbjerg, because I think he can complement him really well, because I think he's a bit more of maybe an all-round player, Skipp. Although, again, you look at yesterday and you see how Hojbjerg can do that. But also he can come in and out for Hojbjerg. They can have, they can rotate. There's so many different ways to use Oliver Skipp. But I think with Oliver Skipp, a lot depends on Harry Winks. If Harry Winks sticks around next season, I think that makes it difficult for Oliver Skipp to stay around next season and get regular football. If Harry Winks is sold to raise some money and he wants to go, then I think Oliver Skipp then slips naturally into that central midfield role, and you don't need to buy another central midfielder, and he's also homegrown, so it's like ticks every box. But yeah, Hojbjerg I think has had a really good season. Other people I want to pick out before we move on from the match. Japhet Tanganga played very well. Very solid, I think is the best way to say him. Maybe that's one decision that perhaps, could be said against Ryan Mason. I think there's been times when he's clearly has wanted to play Bale, and I think to play Bale and just take a little bit of defensive burden off him, I think you play Tanganga, because I think Tanganga sits, I think he's more naturally defensive and he won't venture forward. He did yesterday, but he won't do it as much, and most of all, he will get back and track back. And what he also has, the other thing that Tanganga brings, it's a bit like Davies used to do for Aurier. With Tanganga, he can slip in alongside Alderweireld and Dyer, it was yesterday, and make a back three to allow Reguilon to bomb on. And I think you saw that with Reguilon. He was very attacking minded yesterday. And that's because of having that little basis, that foundation at the back. And I do wonder whether, I've said about how in the past Walker and Rose were so good as both flying fullbacks. But the difference in that formation, that system, was that Eric Dyer at that time was playing as a defensive midfielder who could slot back and make a back three. So you retained that back three. And I think right now, with Hojbjerg does it occasionally, but not all the time. And I think as that is, without having someone that naturally sits and splits the central defence, you need to have one of your fullbacks as being more defensive. And I thought Tanganga did very well. Anyone that's watched these and has read my stuff before, what I think about Japhet Tanganga. I think he's criminally underused. He's got less minutes than Dele Alli this season. And I also thought Mourinho writing him off as a centre-back, I didn't really understand either. I think he could do a very good job at both, and he's very composed and nothing phases him. It really doesn't. And I hope that the next manager sees that as well. And I hope that he gets a little run now, plays the last 2 games of the season as well. Serge Aurier is a bit of a strange one. It was made very clear to us by the club his absence of the squad yesterday was because of a groin injury. Obviously, Ryan Mason, 2 days before, had told us that everyone was fit and trained, and he admitted afterwards, look, he had trained a week. It's a strange one, and we're not too sure whether he'll be available for Wednesday, but we just didn't think he was right to play, and he didn't feel he was right to play as well. Obviously, with all the speculation with PSG, everyone's mind's going to be going ding, 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 ding. You're going to get that siren going off the back of your head. Which reminds me of that Cole Pilkington one where he goes, which I can't say because I don't really want to swear in these. But yeah, Serge Aurier to PSG is a strange one for me. I understand him wanting to. He's made no secret of wanting to go back to PSG one day. PSG he's got a strong connection with. I'd be surprised though if Mauricio Pochettino wants him back, wants him there. From everything I understood at the time, I didn't really get the impression that Poch or his staff were the biggest Serge Aurier fans. And I think you saw that. Even in the season when Kieran Trippier was injured and carrying an injury, he still started most of the games over Serge Aurier. And Serge Aurier, kind of was on the verge of leaving. I think there was Poch's for last season. Didn't Kyle Walker-Peters play the first 3 games because Aurier had told the club he wanted to leave and Milan was sniffing around him. And then Walker-Peters, I think, got injured. Transfer window closed. Aurier kind of came back in and became the first choice again. Pretty sure that was last season, wasn't it? Oh, man, honestly. Right now, Tottenham Hotspur just blends into one, don't they? All of these seasons, it's just madness. But yeah, I'd be surprised if Aurier is a real Poch target, or whether that's one that PSG just want back for the long term, if they want him. We'll see. He's only got, I think, a year left on his deal. Could bring a little bit of money for Spurs, and it would allow them, let's be honest, to probably buy another right back. I understood why Tanganga got in ahead of Doherty. I think some people are going, that's the end of Matt Doherty. I don't think it was. Like I said, the more defensive right back made sense, and I understood why he played. You may find that Doherty comes in against Aston Villa because it's a different challenge. I don't know. But, I thought Tanganga played very well. Gareth Bale, obviously, like I said, had a better game. Certainly looked sharper. Against Leeds, I was really disappointed in him. But I thought he looked a little bit sharper in this game and he tried to make things happen. And he's got this little kind of link-up, I think, with a few of the players. Lo Celso works quite well with. Lo Celso had an interesting one. I wouldn't say he absolutely shone yesterday, but I thought he did a lot of the hard work alongside Hojbjerg that was maybe overlooked. There were quite a few times when people might not realise that it was Lo Celso winning the ball back. I think there was an early, maybe Kane's early shot. I think it was Lo Celso who won it back and gave it to Hojbjerg, who then gave it to Kane. I think that was how it worked. But there was certainly an early chance that Lo Celso won the ball back, and he did a lot of that. Some of his distribution wasn't great, but I can understand, I think, why he's getting in there at the moment, maybe over on Dele, because of his work rate and his kind of slightly aggressive way of tackling. But personally, I'd like to see Dele back in there, although I admit against Southampton he was pretty ropey in his last start. Sergio Reguilon, I thought, came back and did well. He and Eric Dyer, obviously, were the two that had the absolute nightmare against Leeds. Dyer, as I said, was a bit lucky to keep his place. He had a decent game yesterday. Wasn't really troubled too much. Just kind of kept his head down, which is probably exactly what you wanted after the Ellen Road performance. For Reguilon, he was never really going to be left out the side because of Ben Davies' injury. He's likely to be out, for the remainder of this season. He's doing some individual training, but Mason doesn't think he'll be back. But with Reguilon, he had to start, and I thought there was one moment where I thought, it's going to go the other way, when he was doing that thing he does where he likes to scream, he likes to shout when he's been tackled, he likes to roll around. And there was one moment in the Wolves box when he was tumbling around like he'd just been shot by a sniper. And the loose ball fell right in front of him. And had he not been rolling over, and I think he was had his arse in the air or something at that point, had he actually kind of been still on his feet or had got up quickly, he probably could just slam the ball in the net. But he didn't. And I kind of thought, oh no, we're going to go this way. Is this going to be another one of those performances? But to be fair to him, he battled away. He did. I think he had one shot that the keeper tipped over. And then he had that moment where Dele Alli passed a little bit heavy to him. He kept the ball in play. And then the right back, was it Hover? I can't remember his name. I think it was Hover. He challenged, slid in, took the ball, knocked it inside Son. Son hit to Bale. Bale shot saved, and Hojbjerg obviously rammed it home. And that all came really from Reguilon's fight and desire. And Mason, when I asked about Hojbjerg, he picked out Reguilon for his, or Reggie, as they call him, picked him out for his involvement in that second goal. And I thought that was important for him, because I do think there's a very good player in there. I think he just has had his confidence knocked a bit since that last injury and being left out of the Spain squad just before it as well. He'll get back to it. And if anything, maybe it stops Real Madrid coming in for the buyback clause this summer. And that would be great, because I think the next manager is going to have a very good left back on their hands. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the match. I don't think there's too much else to talk about that I can really think of. I want to talk about the protests, obviously. I saw the people that were there on Sunday. There weren't too many there at that point, because it was I mean, the weather was a bit rubbish, It may have been early. To be fair, as well, it was probably early because I obviously have to get there a little bit before kick-off, a fair bit before kick-off. There were probably maybe 30, 40 people there, some on one side of the road, some on the other. I think there was probably more police and stewards, but there had been a lot more the day before. Obviously, it's my day off, so I was off with the family, so I wasn't there for that one. I didn't see that. I'd spoken before about my thoughts on the day that was done on, so I'm not going to repeat that. There's no point. I want to kind of get this in the right way because I don't want to have a go at people at all, because I think the most important thing for me is the right to protest is so important. It really is. And I think I know some of the people that went down there and protested. I spoke to some of them before, and there's a lot of passionate people going along, a lot of people that really want the best for Tottenham Hotspur. And I think that's crucial. That's the most important thing. People are coming at it from a good place. It's not about, not about some of the silly stuff you sometimes get on football Twitter and things like that, and people that clearly don't really understand how a football club works. And I do think some of these people that went, or a lot of people that went there, clearly it was about their real kind of wanting change for good for Tottenham. What I would say is I do think some of those people's attempts and the constructive messages they were trying to get across were undermined. I was going to say a little bit, but it's unfortunately the defining image or video, whatever you want to call it, that I saw on social media afterwards. They were undermined by this horrible chant that was doing the rounds, and I don't know whether to say it was a minority of people. It sounded pretty loud, but again, I wasn't there, so I don't want to say it was, if it was just a small pocket of fans singing it. But the chant was, "We'll all be having a party when Daniel Levy dies." I can't get my head around that. I can't get my head around why someone want to sing that. It's a repurposing of a Sol Campbell chant, which is equally kind of vile. I don't like all of that. I get football banter and I get kind of having a laugh about football, but when you're saying stuff like that, it's a bit like you've absolutely muddied everything that you're trying to say, because you're now seen as that's what you went there to do. That was what you went there to chant. And that's not, I said it in the last video, for me, the key to a successful protest, the most important thing is to go there with your own set vision of what you want next. It's all very well to call for change, but you've got to have your what next. What comes next afterwards? What do you want to see? What's the plan of progression? Who comes in? If you want the owners out, that's absolutely your right to ask for that. But then you've got to say who comes in next. Or if there's stuff you don't like about the way the club's run, that's absolutely fine. And then exactly say what you want to happen instead. That's really important. And I do think a lot, like I say, the people that I know that were going there, that was very much their intention, was to go there, was to protest and to very clearly set out. And I must say, this was not an aggressive protest in any way. From everything, the little clips I've seen, and it was the same again when I saw the people yesterday. It was a peaceful protest, just trying to get a message across. But I just felt it was such a misstep, that chant. I saw the reaction on social media to it, and people are like, and there's a part of me that wonders, did people then not go yesterday because they kind of thought, I don't want to be associated with that? I don't know. But I just feel the thinking behind that was just badly messed up, and it became a bit of a thoughtless exercise when I actually think probably a lot of thought did go into it. So that was just my thought. Now I don't want to harp on that too much, because I saw some of the banners, and some of the banners were quite clever. There was actually one that really made me laugh. It was also calling for the removal of Darude Sandstorm from the stadium. And if you're not aware what that is, that's the bit of dance music that plays every time Spurs score a goal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and that absolutely hit the mark with me. I thought that was so funny. And when I say funny, that's not in a way of like they were there as jokers. It was just a way to say, look, we've kind of got a light-hearted touch to some of the stuff we're saying, but we are serious about this. And I just thought it was such a shame that just nasty chant. I've seen people on Twitter defending it, and what I'd probably say is, would you be happy if, I don't know, a member of your family had people coming around their place of work or whatever and were chanting that they would have a party when they died outside. And if the answer's no, then don't sing it. Don't sing it. I'm sorry to sound patronising. And probably those people that were singing it and were happy to sing it will probably just think I'm an utter muppet. And they're very much welcome to that view. But personally, it's not the way I would have gone about it. Like I say, I think protests are always an important thing. And I think there are a lot of passionate people, like I say, involved with the right motives. And I just felt that was almost like kind of cutting off their legs at the knees with the actual protest itself, because everyone just thinks they're just chanting that. What do they know? Which isn't true, because I do think there was some educated and intelligent people in there who had a point to make. We'll see. Want to talk about what next? Obviously, I have to talk about the trust. I spoke a bit about them last week, so I don't want to go too into it. But what is important is the news that the trust and the club's board are going to meet tomorrow, Tuesday. So that's a big step forward. Obviously, I was saying this in the last video. Compromise was needed somewhere along the lines, and it looks like that's what's happened. So that's great. They're going to talk and discuss this new club advisory panel, which will have all the fans on it, which will be picked by the selection criteria for this panel will be picked by an independent panel. Nothing to do with the club or the trust or anything, which is great. So you will get a proper representation across the diverse nature of Spurs fans. There's so many very different Spurs fans across the world, and this will be great. You'll actually get a real cross-section of it. And the trust are going to kind of have their say. And I think it's also important to say that the trust will not be looking to be that chair. So if you missed this on the last video, the chair of this panel will get a place on Tottenham Hotspur's non-executive board. They will be a full director, technically. They'll be on the board and they'll be able to have full voting rights on all matters, including football matters. So it's a real big step forward. And, it's actually more than a lot of the other clubs have been doing. Some would argue it needs to be even more done, and that may be the case, but it's definitely a step forward. But what I was about to say was that the trust, because of their rules, they cannot have a member of their board sit on the board of the club. So I've seen some people say, the trust are just trying to do a power grab. They just want to be in charge. They want to make decisions. They want to be able to sign blah, blah, or whatever. That's not what this is. They can't do that. They can't be this chair. The chair will be someone who is not on the trust board. And so that means really that they're only going into this meeting with purely good intentions and trying to find something that is good for the football club and good for the Tottenham Hotspur fans. And I hope it really goes well tomorrow. I really hope it does. I know meetings are going to be held with other kind of branches of the Spurs supporters. I think some already have, from what I understand. Let's hope it finds a way forward. And let's see what happens next, because it's been a bit of a mess. Let's put it that way. A lot of PR mistakes by the club. Absolute public relations nightmare this year. Whoever's kind of been in charge of the communications and everything, has just made a mess of it. It's as simple as that, really. It hasn't been good. But that's that. So let's see what happens. I don't want to obviously go on too far into what might happen. Let's, as Ryan Mason would tell me, it's all hypothetical at this moment. Let's see what happens tomorrow, and I'll talk about that in the next video. But the new manager, let's talk about that. So we're not there yet. We're getting there. What I would say is, obviously, as I told you in the past, the club's original intention, I was made aware, was that they wanted to try and announce someone before the end of the season. As I said, I think in recent weeks, that was a hope that unfortunately, with reality and all the fallout from what happened with the Super League, is becoming less and less realistic as it goes on. And what I understand is that the main candidates for the role are currently employed by other clubs. So that always made it difficult, really, to try and appoint that person before the end of the season. How do you do that? How do you appoint someone that has to finish their season? I know that happens in Europe a fair bit. It's happened with Roma and Mourinho and Paulo Fonseca. But yeah, it's. I think the key thing as well, what makes this slightly different maybe to normal managerial processes, is that because of regulations right now, all any talks that will have taken place so far with potential candidates for the job will have been over Zoom, which I know a lot of companies are having to go down that route, but for a huge multi-million-pound decision over your next manager, and let's make no bones about this has to be the right decision. If this is probably going to be the biggest decision that Daniel Levy and Enoch, whatever you want to say, have made in a long time, it has to be right. So what I would say is from now, I'd say from the end of the season, they can start talking to people face to face. And the reason behind that is obviously from today you can meet people indoors, which you couldn't do before. And also, once the season is finished, anyone within a club is then out of their bubble. That club bubble ends because obviously they've left for the season. Most of the players going off on international duties, ready for the Euros, or is it Copa America, I think, as well this year? I'm trying to remember if that is this year. But anyway, yeah, so they're out of their bubbles. So that means then you can actually meet face-to-face with people from other clubs, and that can be done. And I think you probably, before you make this decision, want to be doing it face-to-face. You want to be getting a real feel for this person. You want to get a feel for their charisma, because, again, make no mistake about it, the person that comes in has to have, and I've said this before, a charisma and an ability to absolutely unite this football club again, because it's fragmented. It is. There's no getting around it. It's a fragmented football club, and they need to unite the fans, the players, the staff, everyone involved, and make them all feel one family again. So, yeah, I'd say for me, if I was making that decision, I would probably be more comfortable making that face-to-face interview process. So, yeah, I think some talks have already taken place, like I say, but I think the bulk the better time to do it is probably once this weekend is done. So, yeah, well, I think it was a very aspirational kind of idea to want to announce it before the end of the season. I think the more the weeks have gone on, the more that didn't really make sense. And I do think the COVID regulations have played their part. And also the fact that maybe managers that they'd previously looked at have had ends to the season that have made it difficult to distract that. And also, even Spurs. Maybe Spurs. Do you want to distract the team this week with two must-win matches, really, with a managerial appointment? It probably takes away. It probably does distract rather than motivate. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at on that. From what I understand, I still don't think it's going to be that long. I don't think we're talking about waiting until, July until there's going to be a manager. I think you are looking maybe a couple of weeks after the season's done at the most. I think it will move very quickly. Like I say, the shortlist, I've said this last week, so sorry for anyone that watched that. The shortlist is there, and like I say, now I understand the preferred candidates are in jobs currently. So, yeah, once they get permission to talk, that happens, doesn't it, pretty quickly, because then you just make your decision. So I do think you're probably looking at maybe 2-3 weeks at the max after this season finishes. But yeah, I mean, there's a few of them. Hansi Flick, I've seen linked. From everything I'm told, his move to be the new Germany manager is done. It is. It is just essentially just set to be announced, and that he's not, one that's actually in contention for the Tottenham job because of that. I also, on a personal level, I think he was fantastic with Bayern. I maybe, if I was a prospective employer, would possibly look at whether he can do it outside the Bayern bubble. He hadn't actually been a manager for something like maybe 14, 15 years before that. He was an assistant manager, wasn't he? Was it at Bayern and Germany? I think the last time he was a manager was, a long, long time ago, maybe 14, 15 years ago at Hoffenheim when they were in the second division. I think I remember reading that he couldn't get them up, and that was why he left. So in terms of managerial experience, he's really only had those 2 years within the Bayern bubble. So yeah, but like I say, I think the Germany job is pretty much there. I mean, he's so ingrained in the German FBA, the FA. I can't remember their name now. It's D something, the initials. But anyway, I've forgotten a lot of things. I'm turning into a proper old man in this video. But yeah, he's so ingrained with the German FA that I think that's a decision that's just going to happen sooner rather than later. I don't think it's a case of there's room for it looks like I've seen reports from other countries where Barcelona and Juventus have sniffed around and then just gone, no, he's going to Germany. And everything that I'm told is that that's done. So, unfortunately, I don't believe Hansi Flick is one you should really be pinning your hopes on. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Brendan Rodgers still. I think the Brendan Rodgers hopes probably died a while back. Like I said before, Spurs really like him, but when he does what he did with Leicester at Wembley, creates that little bit of history, winning their first FA Cup. You saw how he was with their owner on the pitch. How do you then step away from that? They may not get top four. It's a crucial match against Chelsea for them. And then obviously Tottenham could play their part in stopping them getting in there. But I still think after what happened with the FA Cup, it'd be very difficult for Rodgers to walk away. But you never know. You can never say never, but it doesn't make sense to me for him to want to do that or do that. It's not a good look. I've seen Steven Gerrard linked sometimes. I don't believe he's in consideration, but he's done a very good job. Don't get me wrong. I think he's done a terrific job. I think obviously the league is slightly skewed up there, and I can say that because I'm half Scottish. My mum is Scottish, so kind of, when you have, as a kid, you have your teams from other countries. Rangers were my Scottish team as a kid because my family from Glasgow. But there's no getting around it. It is still a two-team league. I know Rangers have very much been on this journey where they've had to rebuild and come up from the lower leagues and back up and all of that. And Celtic had been dominating, and Gerrard it was an unbeaten season as well, wasn't it? Has absolutely smashed that, but I think he's still very inexperienced in the respect of, I think. Again, I don't want to use like the Bayern bubble with the Scottish football bubble, but he kind of obviously has to be tested a little bit, I think, before he could take on a big job elsewhere, unless it was Liverpool. You'd think Liverpool is probably the one, purely because he knows the setup and the structure so well. So, I don't believe it'll be Gerrard, although, I must admit, I think it looks like he's going to be a good manager. So let's see where he goes. But as I said before, Spurs are playing their cards very close to their chest. They did this when Mourinho came in. Pochettino was gone, and within a few hours, suddenly it was very clear that Mourinho was coming in, and that was out of nowhere. They've had a little bit longer, obviously, because of circumstances. But I don't think that changes the fact that they're trying to not have anyone know who that man is. And it may well be that it's someone in the process, but it may be someone that none of us have kind of thought of and just comes out of left field completely. But I'll keep digging. I will keep digging because it's fascinating to see who it is. And like I say, it's got to be the right choice. It has to be absolutely spot on. So back to football this week. Back to the fans. I can't wait to have the fans back. I don't know about you, but I wasn't there because obviously it wasn't a club that I cover. But watching the FA Cup on telly without having the fake fan noise and having real fans, it was like almost nostalgic, which it really shouldn't be. It was just lovely to hear the actual real noises that fans make when, I don't know, when you get a corner in front of them and just get that roar. And I love that. And I cannot wait to have it. I know it's only going to be 10,000 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Wednesday night, but I can't wait to have you guys back. Seriously. I must admit, in a very selfish way, in the beginning, I quite liked having an empty stadium, being able to hear what the players were saying. You could hear the manager shouts, you could hear everything going on. But as time's gone on, it just hasn't felt like football. And it'll be brilliant to have you guys back. It really will. I don't know yet whether there's going to be an official protest. Like I say, there was always meant to be an official protest that the Trust were kind of giving their backing to, which was officially endorsed by the Trust. Whether the meeting they're set to have with Tottenham changes that slightly, I don't know. I think we're supposed to get a little bit more information from the Trust on that soon. So by the time you watch this, we may know a little bit more. But I'm sure people will still want to make their feelings known. I'm sure Tottenham will be beefing up security because obviously we'll have people now technically able to voice their frustrations and feelings within the stadium as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that works. First one back with the fans, and the fans will be letting the owners know what they think. I really hope that chant doesn't come up. I really hope it. If it does, or if you're thinking of doing it, please don't, because like I say, it will undermine all the good kind of positive, constructive stuff you're trying to come out with. And yeah, don't let the protest be known for that, because I know how the media works. I know that if that is sung loudly and the journalists all hear it inside the stadium, that will become what is reported, not what you're trying to actually say around that horrible, horrible chant. So, again, I have no sway. You have absolutely no reason to listen to what I'm saying, but I just would say, if you're going to protest, do it in a constructive way and get your point across. Don't come out with, let's be honest, silly stuff like that, which just does you no good whatsoever. But then, hey, sorry to sound like a dad figure. That's not what I wanted to do when I started this whatsoever. But yeah, let's see kind of what happens. But most of all, a massive, big old tick on having fans back in the stadium. And I cannot wait. I seriously cannot wait. Just to walk along and seeing them all outside the ground would be great. Say hello if you see me. Please do. Yeah, it'd be great to see everyone back. You know, I think the key thing for all of us is that whatever comes of the next few months, I just think we probably want the Tottenham Hotspur back that we all first fell in love with. We all did at some point. You know, yes, I'm a journalist and yes, I'm objective, but I've made no bones about this at all, or no secret at all. I grew up a Tottenham fan. I did. My dad, I had no choice. My family were big Spurs fans, so I was raised on Tottenham Hotspur and all of the mediocrity and mixed in with some beautiful cup moments that Tottenham brought when I was a kid. They were pretty mediocre in the league, but yeah, in the cups, they were certainly a cup team. And I like everyone else, fell in love with Tottenham Hotspur. We've got to be a special bunch to support Tottenham Hotspur. We really have, because they probably do give more pain than they give joy. But when they give joy, it's superb. It's fantastic. And I'm sure that's what you guys will get from it as well, guys and girls. You know, it's I think it will make it all the sweeter when Tottenham do finally get to where they belong or where they should be. And I think the owners, you know, they have to make it happen. They have to this summer. I've said it before. I know it's tough, and I know there's going to be huge losses posted in the next financial stuff. And I was looking into all the Bank of England loan stuff. Spurs have rolled that into over. They've had £175 million loan from the Bank of England, which is very low interest, but it's also short term. So they have to pay all of that back by March 2022. It was meant to be this month, but they've rolled it over. They've got that to pay off. They've already got about £800 million worth of debts for the stadium. But Daniel Levy and the club have to find some money for somewhere, because this new manager, whoever he may be, is going to want to stamp their authority, as every manager does. They're going to have a lot of young, talented players to work with, but they're going to have to move players on and make it their own team. So money's going to have to be found from somewhere. Like I say, I've said this before, but I hope it's not by selling a popular player. But if it does have to go down that route, then the money has to be spent wisely. It really does. Like I say, and I've said it before, there's some players, a certain Harry Kane, that are absolutely irreplaceable for me. But yeah, like I say, we'll get there. Football is cyclical. You know, everything comes around, and Tottenham will be back where they should be again. And all the rubbish, all the silly decisions and all the mess, it'll only be sweeter, I think, when it happens. And like I say, this isn't the Tottenham Hotspur right now we all fell in love with, but hopefully that Tottenham Hotspur can come back again at some point, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Right, I'm going to head off because I can feel my voice going. And like I say, if you see me on Wednesday as I walk to the press box, I'm not entirely sure where the press entrance is going to be on Wednesday. They might switch it around the back, so I might not see you. But if you do see me, please do say hello. And apologies if I did offend anyone who did chant that, and you may not want to say hello. You might want to say something completely different to me if you see me on Wednesday. But hopefully you know where I'm coming from. It's in a constructive way to try and help you guys get your point across. But there you go. Right, I'm going to head off. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.